Imagine going to a family gathering, the kind with folding chairs, paper lanterns, kids running around with cake on their faces. Nothing unusual, just another birthday party. But what if, in the middle of all that laughter and music, your husband leaned over and whispered, "Grab your bag, we're leaving right now, act normal"? What if, minutes later, he locked the car doors and said words that would change your entire life? That's not your grandfather. Oz. This is the story of the day I learned my whole family had been lying to me. For 3 years. My mother and sister were the ones hosting the big event. It was supposed to be a special day, my grandfather's 90th birthday. My husband, Daniel, stood beside me under the string lights and leaned in close to my ear. His voice was calm but sharp, almost too calm. "Get your bag," he whispered. "We're leaving. Act like nothing's wrong." First, I thought he was overreacting. Daniel could be protective sometimes, even a little dramatic when he sensed something off. But when we reached the car and he locked the doors, I realized he wasn't joking. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Then he looked at me and said the words that froze me solid. "Something's very, very wrong." 5 minutes later, my fingers were shaking as I called the police. Now let me back up. I hadn't seen most of the people at that party in over 5 years. Some of them even longer. A few of the faces, honestly, I didn't recognize at all. Still, it had all the pieces of a normal backyard celebration. Someone handed me a plastic flute of champagne. A kid ran past holding a paper plate like it was a toy steering wheel. There were folding chairs scattered across the lawn, paper lanterns swaying above us, and a Bluetooth speaker in the corner playing soft background music. On the surface, it was cheerful, comfortable, festive in a slightly awkward way, the kind of family reunion where everyone smiles too big and pretends they've been close all along. For the first hour or so, I told myself everything was fine. I stood near the table of appetizers, pretending I was fascinated by little grape and cheese skewers. Daniel hovered beside me with a glass of white wine in his hand, watching the crowd with that neutral, unreadable face he wears when he's too polite to say he wants to leave. My mother, Evelyn, was glowing. She moved from guest to guest, hugging, laughing, dabbing tears from her eyes, and reapplying lipstick behind a napkin like she was the star of the show. My dad, George, sat near the grill, fanning himself with a paper plate and grumbling about the humidity like the weather was a personal insult. And my sister, Melissa, predictably nowhere near me. That was just how it always was with her. She stuck close to her husband, Trevor, who was busy laughing too loud at his own jokes. The house itself, Grandpa's house, didn't feel like his anymore. He had built it decades ago after his small business took off. Nothing flashy, just a solid, roomy house that made people whisper about how well he'd done. Now Mom and Dad lived there. Melissa and Trevor too. They had filled it with their things, their lives, their energy. The place didn't hold his warmth anymore. Daniel and I had flown in from Seattle the night before. For years, I'd asked when we could visit. The answer was always vague. Not a good time. He's not feeling well. Maybe next year. Then suddenly this spring, Mom said, "If you really want to see him, come for his birthday." I jumped at the chance. I thought it meant something. Maybe she was softening. Maybe this was the start of a truce. When they wheeled Grandpa out onto the patio, the party shifted. He was dressed in a sweater vest I half recognized from years ago. His white hair was neatly brushed. The crowd clapped like royalty had arrived. My heart twisted because in that moment I couldn't move. He looked good. Too good. His face was strangely smooth, almost like a photograph. His eyes were distant, like he was listening to music no one else could hear. I raised my hand in a small wave. He didn't wave back. Mom leaned toward me, whispering just loud enough. "He doesn't talk much anymore. It's hard for him." I nodded, pretending to understand. Then Mom lifted her champagne glass and began the toast, her voice trembling just enough to keep the spotlight on her. 90 years of wisdom, love, and generosity, she said. He built our family. He gave us this life. Guests sniffled. Someone behind me muttered beautiful under their breath. I clapped politely, but Daniel, he didn't clap at all. Instead, his eyes were fixed on Grandpa, or rather the man in the chair. His face was locked in concentration, like he was memorizing every detail. "Hey," I nudged him. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer. "Daniel." That's when he leaned in. His lips barely moved. "Get your bag. We're leaving. Act like nothing's wrong." I actually laughed a little. "You're kidding." But he wasn't. His jaw was tight, his voice steady. Smile. Walk inside. Pack now. What are you talking about? We just got here. He finally turned to look at me. His eyes were sharp, unshakable. Something is very, very wrong. It wasn't his words that scared me. It was the way he said them, calm, steady, like he was stating a scientific fact. My stomach went cold. I looked back at Grandpa. His hands rested on the armrest like they were placed there, stiff and unnatural. Daniel was already walking toward the house. My heart hammered as I followed. Upstairs, I fumbled with the zipper on my overnight bag, my hands trembling. My mind raced. If he's wrong, this will be humiliating. If he's right. We slipped out the front door. No one stopped us. No one even looked up. At the car, Daniel opened the passenger door like a gentleman in a spy film. Once we were inside, he locked all 4 doors, then gripped the steering wheel. His voice came low and steady. That's not your grandfather. Daniel's words echoed in my ears. That's not your grandfather. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard. I blinked at him, trying to process. What do you mean? What are you talking about? He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed fixed straight ahead, jaw tight. It's not him. You mean what? You think he's sick? Or confused? Daniel, he's 90 years old. No, he finally turned his head. His eyes locked on mine. I mean, it is not him. That man sitting in the wheelchair is not your grandfather. I froze. I stared at him like he just told me the earth was flat. That's insane. You think someone put on a mask? Like a Scooby-Doo villain. Not a mask. His voice was calm, too calm. His ears. They're different. I let out a short, nervous laugh. His ears. Yes, Daniel said firmly. I remember faces. Every detail. Since I was a kid, I don't forget. Not ever. I could sketch someone I saw once in a train station years ago. That man out there, his ears aren't the same. His face shape isn't the same. That is not your grandfather. And just like that, my stomach dropped like I'd swallowed ice. I wanted to laugh again, the kind of wild, high-pitched laugh people let out when they're about to break. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying to breathe. Then who is he? Daniel didn't answer. He just looked back at the house, his jaw clenched. My uncle. The words slipped out before I realized I'd said them. Daniel frowned. What? My uncle, I repeated. People used to say he looked a lot like Grandpa when he was younger. Almost identical, actually. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Where is he now? I tried to think. He wasn't at the party. At least I didn't see him. I don't even know if he lives around here anymore. Then the pieces started sliding into place. The glasses. The neatly trimmed beard. His posture. Oh my God. I whispered. You think they dressed him up? Daniel didn't blink. I know they did. My whole body went cold. I pressed my forehead against the window, my breath fogging the glass. My mind raced back over the party. The awkward toast, the stiff smiles, the way no one let me get close enough to touch him. The way he never spoke. The way Mom whispered excuses every time I tried. Suddenly, a thought broke through my panic, sharp and terrifying. Then where is he? Where's my real grandfather? Daniel didn't speak. Where is he? My voice cracked. The question ripped through me like fire. I pressed my fists into my lap, staring out at the house that had once been my second home. I haven't talked to him in 3 years, I said out loud. The last time was on Zoom. He looked tired but still sharp. After that, Mom kept saying he was too sick. Too tired. He's resting. He's sleeping. I thought I was being dramatic like always. But now, Daniel placed a steady hand on my arm. Victoria, he said softly, you need to call someone. I turned to him, my throat tight. You mean the police? He nodded. Yes. If we're wrong. We're not, I whispered. I hesitated, my phone heavy in my shaking hands. Calling the police on my own family? It felt like cutting a wire I could never fix. My mom's face flashed in my mind, her practiced smile, her tight nod when we left the party. I'll ruin everything, I whispered. Daniel looked at me, his eyes steady and kind. You're not the one who ruined anything. I swallowed hard. My thumb hovered over the screen and then I pressed call. The officers arrived faster than I expected. Not in sirens and flashing lights. Just 2 plainclothes men who carried that quiet kind of authority, like they were used to moving through awkward scenes. They spoke to us outside the car. My words felt clumsy, unbelievable even as they came out of my mouth. I know this sounds crazy, but I believe someone is impersonating my grandfather. I don't know where he is, and I think something's very wrong. They didn't laugh. They just asked questions. Calm, careful ones that still felt like traps. Then they nodded, thanked us, and walked toward the house like they were delivering a package. From the car, I watched the whole thing unravel. At first, nothing seemed to change. The party went on, smiles fixed in place, music humming in the background. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the energy shifted. Guests still held their glasses, still laughed politely, but their eyes started darting, their shoulders tightened. I saw one officer speak to my mother. Her face crumpled for a second, like someone had told her the wine was corked, then hardened. She gestured, shook her head, her mouth moving fast. Dad stood stiffly to the side, staring at the hedge like it could explain everything. The other officer bent down, speaking to the man in the wheelchair. The imposter. He didn't answer at first. Mom disappeared inside, returned with papers, probably ID. It changed nothing. The officers remained calm, professional, quiet. And then I saw it. The man in the chair tilted his head. His lips moved. Just a few words. Then he nodded. I couldn't breathe. One officer walked back toward us. His face was unreadable. "Can you stay nearby?" he asked. "We'll contact you soon." "Is it him?" My voice cracked. "Is it my grandfather?" He didn't answer directly. "We're still confirming. But you know it's not him." Then he walked away. I sat frozen in the car, every second pressing down on me heavier than the last. One question pulsed in my head over and over. Where is he? Where is he? That night my phone rang. My mother's number lit up the screen. I answered, my voice shaking. "How could you?" she hissed. She was furious, screaming, crying. I couldn't even tell the difference. "You called the police? On your own family? Mom, you think you're better than us because you left, because you live so far away. You don't understand. You weren't here. You didn't see what it was like. We did what we had to do for him. For all of us. What did you do?" My voice broke. "Where is he? You don't get to ask that. Not after what you've done. Where is Grandpa?" I shouted, tears burning down my face. Silence. Then a click. She hung up. When the knock came at our hotel door the next morning, my stomach lurched so hard I thought I might throw up. 2 officers stood there, somber, professional. My heart thudded in my chest, still clinging to a thread of hope that maybe, somehow, this was all a misunderstanding. But they didn't come to arrest us. They came to tell me the truth. My grandfather had been dead for 3 years. Not missing. Not hidden away. Dead. The words washed over me like ice water. 3 years. While I'd been sending birthday cards, asking for Zoom calls, begging for updates, he'd been gone. All along. The family had buried him privately. No announcements. No obituary. No goodbye. And the man in the wheelchair? My uncle. Disguised. Playing the role of my grandfather so no one, especially me, would find out that I sat down hard on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the carpet like it might rearrange itself into answers. The officers' voices were calm, steady, professional, but the words kept hitting me in waves I couldn't absorb. "Mr. Harrison passed away in March 2022. Natural causes, according to the family. They report he was buried privately. 3 years. 3 years. While I was sending birthday cards, while I was asking for Zoom calls, while I was wondering if I'd done something wrong to upset him, he had been gone. I'd pictured him in his garden, sipping peppermint tea, maybe forgetting to call because he was tired. But no. He wasn't tired. He wasn't busy. He wasn't ignoring me. He was gone. And no one told me. The officers said there would be an open investigation until the coroner confirmed the circumstances. But their tone told me they already suspected the truth. My family hadn't killed him. They hadn't staged violence. They had staged his life. When they left, the silence in the hotel room was suffocating. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I sat there numb, whispering to no one. Why didn't they tell me? Why wouldn't they let me say goodbye? Daniel put his arm around me, steadying me the way he always did when the world cracked open. "They didn't just keep it from you," he said quietly. "They used him. They used his image. I swallowed, my throat dry. For what? Why would anyone do that? The answer came days later. At first it was whispers online, a blurry Reddit post, a local gossip blog. Then someone uploaded video footage of the birthday party. The toast, the imposter in the wheelchair, my mother's teary speech. The internet devoured it. Family fakes grandfather's life for 3 years. Daughter calls police on 90th birthday party imposter. People laughed. They speculated. They tore it apart like meat thrown to wolves. I stopped reading after the first 20 comments. According to strangers, I was everything from an accomplice to a spoiled brat to a narcissist who should have let her family cope however they wanted. But I didn't care about the noise. I cared about the silence from my family, from my mother especially. Until the phone rang again. Her voice was sharp, broken with fury. How dare you? You called the police on us. On your own blood. You lied to me, I whispered. For 3 years. You don't understand, she snapped. You weren't here. You left. You don't know what it was like. What did you do with him? Where is he? You don't get to ask that, she spat. Not after what you've done. I asked every year, I said, tears hot on my cheeks. Every year I asked about him. And you lied. Again and again. We were protecting him. Protecting you. He didn't want a big deal made of his death. He wanted peace. I laughed bitterly. Peace? You call dressing up his brother in glasses and fake beards peace? You didn't protect him, Mom. You exploited him. Silence. Then a click. She hung up. Weeks dragged by. The investigation gathered speed. Detectives interviewed neighbors, subpoenaed documents, asked questions I couldn't bear to answer. Eventually, the coroner confirmed it. Natural causes. My grandfather, Samuel Harrison, had died in his sleep. Peaceful. Quiet. No foul play. I cried for the first time since the hotel room. Real gut-deep sobs that shook me until my chest hurt. Because now, finally, I could mourn him without wondering. Without doubting. Without imagining him locked in some room while his brother pretended to be him. But the relief was temporary. There was still the fraud. The impersonation. The money. That's when the lawyer called. Not my family's lawyer. His. My grandfather's. Miss Harrison, this is William Price. I've been trying to reach you. His voice was steady, almost gentle. Your grandfather left his estate to you. The house, the business assets, the trust. All of it. I nearly dropped the phone. What? It wasn't a secret, he said. He told your mother and your sister years ago. It was his wish. You were his heir. My knees buckled. I sat down on the cold tile floor, staring at a crooked line in the grout as if it could make sense of the world. The lawyer's words kept echoing. He told them years ago. Suddenly it all clicked into place. The vague excuses. The blocked calls. The fake birthday party. The man in the wheelchair. They hadn't just hidden his death. They'd hidden it from me because if I knew he was gone, I would inherit everything. And as long as I stayed in the dark, they could live in his house, spend his money, and carry on like nothing had changed. I called my mother. I didn't even know what I wanted, answers maybe. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was tight, shaking with rage. How dare you? You humiliated us. You destroyed this family. You already destroyed it, I snapped. You lied. You pretended. You stole. You weren't here, she screamed. You abandoned us. You don't get to swoop back in and act like some hero. What happened to him? I asked, my voice breaking. What did you do with his body? Cold silence. Then, you don't get to ask that. I asked every year, I whispered. Every year I begged to talk to him, to see him. And you lied. Again and again. We were protecting you. Protecting him. He didn't want drama. I laughed, a jagged, broken sound that scraped out of my throat. You didn't protect him. You looted him. Click. She hung up again. The courts moved slower than the internet, but eventually charges came. Failing to report a death. Withholding information. Misusing funds. Identity deception. They didn't face prison time, just probation, conditions, warnings. My uncle, the actor in the wheelchair, cooperated. That spared him harsher punishment. And me? I got the house. The estate. Everything. Not billionaire wealth, but enough. Enough to explain why they'd gone to such lengths to keep the truth from me. When the papers were signed and the house legally transferred, they moved out in silence. No apology, no eye contact, just boxes carried to the curb. My mother left a note on the counter. Just one line scrawled in her neat handwriting. You were always good at taking what you didn't earn. I lit a match and burned it in the kitchen sink. The first night I spent alone in the house, I opened a bottle of wine and sat in Grandpa's chair. The place still smelled faintly of wood polish, still carried echoes of his laughter in the beams and floorboards. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. Not even angry. I just felt dismissed. For once, though, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own family's home. The house felt too quiet after the lawyers left. Silence pressed against the walls, heavy and endless. A silence that used to be filled with Grandpa's humming, the scrape of his shoes in the hallway, or the soft click of the kettle in the kitchen. Now every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the whisper of the wind through the curtains, felt like an echo of something that would never return. I wandered from room to room, trying to get used to the weight of it being mine. My family had made themselves scarce, vanishing from town without explanation. They didn't call, didn't text. No accusations, no apologies. Just absence. It was almost worse than confrontation, like I'd been erased from them as neatly as they tried to erase Grandpa's death. The world outside didn't let me vanish so easily. Headlines still used my name. Clips from the party spread endlessly online. My frozen face, the imposter's too wide grin, the moment the facade cracked. Comment sections swarmed with theories. Some insisted I was lying. Others painted me as the villain, and a few insisted Grandpa was still alive, hidden away. First it stung. But over time it became background noise, just another hum of the modern world. None of those strangers had sat with Grandpa in his garden. None had held his hand when he laughed at his own bad jokes. They didn't know the man, only the spectacle. And the spectacle wasn't mine to carry anymore. The attic gave me something unexpected. A trunk with my name carved inside the lid, tucked beneath old blankets. Inside were letters, dozens of them bound neatly with ribbon. All from Grandpa. The earliest was dated years ago, long before he passed. Some were only a few lines, shaky handwriting spilling across the page. Little updates about his garden, reminders to take care of myself, quiet pride in things I'd done. The last one, written just weeks before he died, nearly undid me. If you're reading this, I didn't get the chance to send it. But know this, Victoria. I am proud of you. You don't need anyone else's permission to live your life. Not even mine. I sat on the floor for a long time, tears soaking the paper, the words anchoring me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. My family could erase me from their story, but not from his. He had remembered. He had thought of me. He had left me this. That night, I placed the letters in his workshop, on the scarred wooden bench where he used to tinker. Somehow it felt like putting them back where they belonged. Life began to settle in its strange, fragile way. Daniel and I painted walls, filled the rooms with the smell of coffee and bread, planted marigolds in the garden the way Grandpa always had. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a mausoleum and started to feel like ours. But the scars lingered. I'd wake from dreams where I was back at the party, the imposter turning toward me again, his face not quite Grandpa's. I'd jolt awake, heart pounding, and it would take minutes to remember I was safe, that it was over. One morning, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was the photo album, the same one my mother had shoved into my lap that night. Proof that the man in the wheelchair had been real. Tucked inside was a letter in her handwriting. You won, Victoria. Maybe you always will. But without us, all you'll have left are ghosts. I read it once. Then I fed it to the fire in the fireplace, watching the words curl into ash. She was wrong. I did have ghosts, but they weren't curses, they were memories. And they were mine to keep. Before winter ended, I gave Grandpa the farewell he deserved. No spectacle. No lies. Just a quiet gathering in the garden, neighbors who'd shared coffee with him, the mailman he always tipped at Christmas, the nurse who had checked on him during his final months. Daniel stood beside me as I read one of the letters aloud, the one where he told me he was proud of me. When I finished, the silence that followed was warm, not heavy. The marigolds swayed in the cold breeze, their stubborn color glowing against the fading grass. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. As the others drifted away, I stayed behind, kneeling to brush my hand along the petals. The garden smelled of earth and memory. Goodbye, Grandpa, I whispered. They can't take you from me again. The wind stirred, soft and steady, carrying with it the faintest warmth, like a hand brushing mine. And for the first time since that terrible night, I believed it.